Hillsboro School District Board of Directors meeting for November 14th, 2017. So that's what you're here for, then you are in the right place. We begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, before we jump into our... So I'm sorry, Wayne. Before Wayne introduces our awesome guest this evening, we just have a very quick recognition that the Board of Directors would like to give to Director and Vice Chair Kim Strelchin, who successfully led our excellent school bond campaign last week. Thank you, team. Very welcome. And there's some dates that maybe they'll get in.
Thank you, Kim.
If you haven't heard, the successful bond campaign is kind of a big deal around here. So we are very, very, very grateful for all of whose hard work. She put in more hours than I think the rest of us combined to help that bond be successful. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Wayne, you're on. Sorry. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're here for a riveting board meeting tonight, but as a bonus, a special bonus tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce the Patterson Elementary School cast of the upcoming play, The Wizard of Oz. Directed by music specialist Ruth Ellison, co-directed by PE specialist Neil Twigg. The student cast of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders will perform a family-friendly production of The Wizard of Oz on December 7th and 8th at 7 p.m. This is Patterson Elementary School's 12th annual theater production. Get ready to head to the land of Oz tonight with Dorothy, Toto, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion, the Wicked Witch of the West, and her monkey minions. As the students representing some of the 85 cast members perform the exciting climax of the play. Please help me in welcoming the Patterson Elementary School's play, The Wizard of Oz.
Watching that way?
Yep.
We'll move. Looks like we're facing that way, guys. Here we go. Oh, we got to turn around. We got it. No worries. You guys are over here. You guys are over there. And we got to move the fire.
Well, that's a little awkward.
I know. I am tough. Let me tell you. You need the other chair too. Yeah.
Which side are we on? Yeah, that's
Monkeys. Here.
you're over there, Zoe.
Not every day you get to do this to students.
Well done, my faithful servants! So, you're off to kill the witch, the wickedest witch of the West! You foolish child! My monkey army surrounds this entire castle, and you will never set foot out of it ever again!
I would finish you.
I would finish you off this moment, but if not those ruby slippers!
You're doing great. But I can be patient.
But I can be patient. till you pass away naturally as my servant. That will come sooner than rather later.
But I didn't want to hurt you. I just want to go home. I want my Auntie M.
Quiet! I'll give something for you to cry about. Something to cry about, eh? That's not a bad idea. That's to teach you a lesson.
It's time to rid you.
It-
It's time to rid you.
It's time to rid of a companion or two.
No, leave them alone.
Here, Scarecrow. Here's some. Let's build your doorway.
No, I won't let you hurt him. You saved us, Dorothy. I couldn't let her hurt you, Scarecrow. Not after the good friend you've been to both me and Toto. I don't mean to be in a rush or nothing, but let's just get this old bag of broom and get out of here. This castle's giving me the creeps. You said it, Lion. Let's go before the monkeys come messing around us again. That's right, you better run, because that's the last time you're ever going to show that face of yours next to Dorothy, to my Dorothy. Roar! Where in the world did that come from, Lion? I think I was just practicing when I get my courage. Well, that was some good practicing. Oh, Lion, you were wonderful. Ah, shucks, you're going to make me blush. Shall we, Dorothy? Absolutely. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
The end. This is what I teach them. You look down, you go, did I shine my shoes? Yes, I shined my shoes. Ready? Did I shine my shoes? Yes,
Let's have you guys do an awesome theater type pose for me as a group. So not in a line, but in a very interesting grouping of you. Have your props. Maybe,
Lion up on the box.
yeah, maybe Lion can be up on the box. Other people gathered around, really tight. You need a tight group.
Eden, how about if you be right behind the monkeys? You're a little taller than our monkeys.
Yes. Do you want to, monkeys, do you want to do 2 and 2? 2 over here, 2 on that side? There you go.
Ooh, they're quick.
Get really grouped up here. Now your shoes
Sean?
spread out. You see
Yes,
that?
scoot behind their feet. Boop, boop, boop. Eden, right by Ella. Scoot up behind Ethan. You got it. There you go.
There we go. That's good. That's good. Some interest there. I like it. Ready? Maybe a little ta-da hands. Don't cover anybody's face on count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold on. Camera issues. See, now that wasn't very exciting. You need to try again. Everybody get excited. You're in a good play production here, okay? 1, 2, 3. All right, one more, just so we make a good one. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you.
Normally we have stage crew to clean this up. You guys are on deck now. Here we go.
Yeah, to be servants. Servants, I tell ya,
So
servants.
it's been 3.5 weeks. It's in the evening at 7. There's going to be one cast on Thursday and another cast on Friday.
Kathy says 85.
No, sorry, 7 to 8, 7 p.m. at Patterson. It's free. The chair's full, run around over there.
Flying monkeys, don't forget your bananas. See you, Austin. See ya.
Thank you all so very much. That was an excellent performance. And just to make sure that everyone knows, I know that Martin interviewed the director there, but the performances are December 7th and 8th at 7 p.m. at Patterson Elementary School. And they're free, which you can't beat, so it's a perfect date night. Okay, if you were here to see the play, you have no obligation to stay during the rest of the meeting if you'd like to leave, obviously. We will not be offended, so worry not. Okay, so let's jump right in, you guys. We need an approval of our agenda to move forward, so we need a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second. Oh, sorry.
You got it. It's been moved by Kim and seconded by Martin to approve our agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? No? All right. So if you would like the agenda to be approved, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, please say no. Our agenda is approved. Thank you very much. And now, very interestingly, we are going to, well, actually, before we do that, Adam, will you kind of explain what we're about to do?
Sure.
And then we'll do it? Okay.
Sure. What we're going to be asking the board to do tonight is to approve an alternate construction method. And in order to do that, you have to adjourn as a school board and reconvene as our local contract review board. Once you do that, Rick Renone from Cornerstone Management Group is going to talk through what this alternate bid method is and answer any questions you may have. We'll then adjourn the local contract review board, reconvene the board meeting, and then later on in the meeting, hopefully, we'll approve this alternate construction method as the local contract review board one more time. So
Okay.
that's what you have to look
All
forward
right.
to.
So I'm going to recess our board meeting and convene our meeting of the local contract review board. Was that accurate, Joe? Did I do that properly? Yes, okay, excellent. First time for everything. All right, so first item is 6A, findings of fact. So that means you're on, Rick.
Yeah. So again, Rick Renone, Cornerstone Management Group, and Rick has been, and his firm are the construction management firm that we've hired to help us through our new bond issue. And so, Rick?
Thank you, Adam. So first of all, good evening, Superintendent Scott, Board Chair Allen, and the rest of the board members, your incredible administrative team, and anybody else who helped pass the bond. I think I have to start by saying congratulations. I was at your bond celebration party, probably the best one I've ever been at. Watching Mike be nervous about the bond passing is something I'll remember for a long, long time. So we've been working for about 2 months to get ready to launch projects. When we got hired and I started talking to Adam and Casey, I said, if you really want to do projects in 2018, which we do, we need to do some work in 2017 to get ready to launch those projects. Part of the process we went through was to take a look at the projects we wanted to complete in 2018 to see was there any project that we wanted to use an alternative contracting method for. The bond management team decided that Reedville Elementary School, the project that we're going to do there that's really turning into be an exciting project, would be one that we felt would qualify for that process. As Adam shared with you, it's a two-step process for us to hire a CMGC firm. The first step is the board, acting as a local contract review board, has to review the findings of facts that we prepared, and we also have to open, before you close, you have to open a public hearing to see if anybody wants to speak for or against the findings after I explain them to you and we discuss them. If you probably got the findings of facts in your board packet. You can see in the finding of facts on page 1, many other public agencies, school districts and other public agencies has used this process successfully. In fact, your district has used this process about 15 times on projects from previous bonds. And so we describe that in the first page. We reference the statutes that we have to comply with. And then in the findings of fact, we give you a project description. Right now, what we know about the project is we're going to do an addition to that site. That addition will include a cafeteria, a kitchen, some classrooms, and some other rooms that we're studying could be in that addition. We're going to improve the existing building, maybe move the library into the existing building and renovate some areas there for classrooms. Then we're going to do a lot of safety and security improvements, improve the mechanical system, do some electrical improvements. We decided this was going to be a complicated project. It's not the largest project we're going to do in the bond, but we are going to be doing work on an occupied site. And we know that we're going to have to be purchasing and ordering components that we're going to need in a unique way. You can see that we described in the findings the responsibilities of the Cmgc firm. These are the things that we would look for that firm to do. I include in section 3 the rationale to use the Cmgc method. We can't block competition. We know we're going to have multiple bid packages. We know that the schedule has some complexity. We also know that we're in a time where the market conditions, if you look at item I under rationale, the market conditions are such that prices are raising quickly, and getting good subcontractors to work on our projects is something that we're going to ask our Cmgc firm to do. We also want the Cmgc firm to help us to really get involvement from local contractors. You have a lot of good local contractors in Hillsboro. It's possible that a Cmgc firm that is based in Hillsboro could submit. So we want to make sure they help us with that. I also list some other rationale. We think that this process has a lot of public benefits. The biggest one is we think we can get it done in an expeditious way. And we want the quality to be good, and we think those are beneficial outcomes to this process. We also will look for them to do some value engineering. We also, under item 8, under the rationale, when you work on an existing campus that is going to have students, and we think some of the work may start before the students in their school year, and we may be working on a few improvements on the site as they come back. And so keeping that site safe is a really, really high priority. And we are going to select a firm that has done that before and will help us on this one. You can see that we also have to talk about the funding sources. Obviously with the bond passing, we have the money to do it. There may be some other funds that we use to complete the project. And we put together about 6 benefits or advantages that we think that the district will get. They're listed there. Cost savings, reductions of schedule risk. We're going to rely on accurate cost data. We want timely completion, and we want quality construction. So before we would move on to seeing if there's anybody in the audience that would want to speak for or in opposition, any questions that the board would have about the process, the findings. Let me tell you one other thing. So if you approve the findings tonight, and we hope you do, then we will prepare a request for proposal that will be advertised. We'll have a mandatory pre-proposal meeting, explain to the contractors what we're looking for. We're going to have to juggle through the holidays to get that RFP done, but we have the RFP ready to get started on tomorrow if we get approval tonight. So any questions you might have about the findings that I could answer tonight?
Jackie?
I have 2 questions. The first one is there a minimum or maximum number of bids for the Cmgc?
Good question. No. My goal when we issue an RFP is that we always bring you 3 qualified firms, and we would select from those 3. This isn't the biggest project the bond's going to do, but I've already talked to some contractors, and there's interest out there. So I'm looking forward to getting 3 or more proposals from qualified firms.
Okay. And the second question is, so the CMGC firms are not chosen by lowest bid, but the subcontractors under them will be?
2 questions. So the CMGC firm, when we issue the request for proposal, there'll be criteria by which the evaluation committee will evaluate and either select some for interview, or if we think the evaluation criteria makes it clear, select one for us to hire. When the CMGC firm, who's responsible for getting bids, they will get us bids. Let's take plumbing, for example. They'll get us multiple bids for plumbing. If the lowest bid is from a responsible firm, then the CMGC will recommend the award to that firm. In the event that the lowest bid is from a firm that has had challenges on other public projects, then sometimes the CMGC may recommend it be to the second lowest bid. But that's a process. We always hope that the lowest bidders that they get bids from are qualified, but they do have the ability, when they think that the lowest bid is from a firm that could provide challenges, they don't have to recommend that. They can recommend the one that they think is most qualified.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yeah, so my question was about the, you mentioned there might be some firms locally in our evaluation criteria. Do we have a local preference that we're going to be having there?
We can't establish points, so give a local firm more points. The statutes don't really allow that. But if there's a firm that's qualified and they happen to be a local firm, my experience with evaluation committees is they consider that in their ranking, but there's not points associated with the firm who might be local. Okay?
Okay. Anybody
Any
else?
other questions of me? And then you have to ask if there's any people after I'm done, if there's anybody with 10 opinions.
I have a bunch of directions.
All right.
They have us covered.
Any other questions for me? Okay, thank you, board.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, so now we come to the point where we have a public hearing. So I have a motion to read. This is a public hearing of the local contract review board to allow comments on the Hillsboro School District draft findings of fact supporting a specific exemption from competitive bidding requirements. I just remembered it was being translated, so I translated it, sorry. For use of the construction management general contractor process for the project at Reedville Elementary School. This is a time for public testimony. The board will have an opportunity for questions and comments after the public hearing is closed. Any patron who wishes to speak should complete a board agenda card located on the back table and submit it to the board secretary. All right, so we declare the hearing open, and is there anyone here who wants to offer public testimony for the contract review board? If you do, give your card to Val. I don't see any. Okay. Is there any further local contract review board discussion? Recess. Okay. So we'll recess the meeting of the local contract review board and reconvene the board meeting. Okay. We'll do that again one more time later on. All right. So we are at audience time now, and I have one agenda card so far. If anybody else wants to address the regular school board, then you need to fill out a board agenda card and give it to Val. Okay, I'll read our audience participation statement. Public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH. Visitors who wish to speak before the board, either as individuals or as members of a group, must complete an intent to speak card, which is available on the back table, and provide it to the board secretary. That's now locked. Comments concerning a published agenda item are limited to its designated place on the agenda, unless otherwise authorized by the board chair. Comments about non-agenda items will be heard during audience time at the beginning of the regular session. Any person who is invited by the board chair to speak should state their name, and if speaking for an organization, the name of the organization. A spokesperson should be designated to represent a group with a common purpose. An individual who has submitted an intent to speak card and has been invited to speak by the board chair will be allowed 3 minutes. A person speaking on behalf of a group will be allowed 5 minutes. The board requests that a public comment add information or a perspective that has not already been mentioned previously. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but in public sessions, the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member. Commendations involving staff members should be sent to the superintendent. Channels for the board's consideration and disposition of legitimate complaints involving individuals include Board Policy KLD, Public Complaints. If appropriate, the board chair will connect the visitor with an administrator to receive comments regarding personnel. Any hearing conducted before the board regarding personnel shall take place in executive session. The board thanks all visitors for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. Okay, so our only person who wants to speak is Joe Everton. Do you want to join us up here, Mr. Everton? Well, I guess it's up to you. You can join us now, or you can join us when we get to it on the agenda. I realize we traditionally have people speak in the beginning, but you're speaking about an agenda topic, so
Right.
do you want to hang around, or would you rather speak now? I'll let you.
I hang around.
Okay, so we'll, if folks can help me remember. You don't normally, that'd be good. If I forget, it's not, I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. Okay. Okay, I'll make myself a note so I can remember. Oh, here it is, okay. All right, so let's hear from Elaine about Student Services Department update.
Lisa, can I have a chance to introduce Elaine just for new board members who don't know her? She's here tonight to talk about, to talk about the work of her department, but for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet Elaine, she probably won't brag a lot about herself, so let me do it for just a second. Elaine's somebody who's been involved in our state, at the state level. She's part of an organization called OACOA, which advocates for really high quality central office leadership and has played a big role in our state in that way. She's somebody who has informed the legislature routinely on high interest topics and legislation, especially regarding students with special needs, and is somebody who's sought after for her opinion regionally on a bunch of different topics, and because of her level of expertise. She's also done her doctoral work most recently on parent engagement, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for the way that parents are engaged in student services and special education topics in HSD. And I just wanted you to know that stuff about her because she's kind of a big deal in our community and in the state, but probably not part of the presentation tonight. So thanks, Elaine, for your leadership in our state and in our district. So welcome, and that's our school board.
Awesome. Hello. Thank you for the nice introduction, and it's nice to be here tonight. I'm happy to be able to talk with you all about some of the really neat things that Student Services have been able to do. And I also have our admin team here who I'd like to introduce to you very quickly. So if you guys could stand up for just a second. Whoop, look back there. Let me get to this page. So in the pink, we have Sarah Walker, who is one of our coordinators, and she works with both the Liberty, nope, she doesn't. She works with the Hill High and Century teams. And then we have Matt Nova, who might be related to a Brooke Nova that you may know. And he is in charge of our Liberty and Glencoe theater teams. And then we have Wendy Ramos, who is our director. And so they are an amazing group of people that make it all happen out in the buildings and incredibly skilled. So just so you kind of have a name with the face and know who they are. I'm going to start by sharing with you, I know I have 10 minutes, so I want to be really efficient here, but I'm going to start by sharing with you our inclusion blueprint. This is a blueprint that we developed both as kind of a symbol of the inclusive work and philosophy that we have here in Hillsboro, but also to kind of very specifically spell out different areas of focus that we need to have in order to have successful inclusive environments. So we have instruction and assessment, we have supports and intervention, we have equity and community, and we have spaces and structures. And those focal points are kind of what we need to focus on as we look toward our work for inclusive education for all of our students. This actually is a rubric that you can click on the online version on one of those colors, and then it takes you to a whole series of resources that would help you know more about instruction and assessment, support, or spaces and structures, equity and community, and supports and interventions. So we have several building support teams, just to give you a sense of what the Student Services Department is like. We have our coordinators and our director, as you met, and then we have occupational therapists, we have assistive technology experts, we have behavior specialists, speech language pathologists, you may refer to as SLPs. We have nurses, we have autism specialists, support specialists, school psychologists, home instruction teachers. So it's a wide array of professionals that we have to provide really comprehensive support for our students. And we have a fabulously skilled staff. We have people coming from all over Oregon to watch what our staff do out in buildings with students and to really call and ask their advice and expertise. We're just extremely lucky in Hillsboro to have such skilled, amazing staff. Some of the direct supports that we provide to schools are something that we wanted you to know just a little bit about. And so we really try and have an instructional focus, meaning instructional inclusive focus, so all of our learners, regardless of what type of disability they may or may not experience, can access their learning. So we know if we plan for the kids on the margins, we can get everybody in the middle. So we have our instructional and inclusion support pieces. We do lots and lots of professional development out with both our general education staff and our special education staff and our administrative staff. We do all kinds of special and procedural support, which may not come as any great surprise to you. We do a lot of legislative and legal support. This last legislative session was very active for special education, and we have lots of new laws that we learn how to implement here in the district and try and figure out how those apply. We help staff out in buildings do their staffing with all of their people that they have, and how can we take all these bodies and most efficiently use them to support kids in the building, given the way that the building work flows. We have evaluation support, and then for our behavioral supports, and I know that there's so much depth to each of these, and so feel free to ask questions or ask me to later about any kind of detail that you want to know about these. I know I'm kind of flying through them, but we have limited student support, or something that we call LSS. We have a behavior cadre that is able to go out and support students. We have clinical psychologist support, so we have that doctoral, really high level support going on as well. We have care coordinator collaboration, and our care coordinators take our families and connect them with community resources when that's necessary, and that's been a really big part of their work. We have wellness centers as part of our trauma-informed work and our culture of care that we're building in buildings. We have specialized classrooms, and we also have some out-of-district placements for our students who really need that therapeutic intervention in different environments. And then we also work with what's called Section 504, which is another way that we can support our students who are experiencing some challenges. So those are some of the direct supports that we provide to schools. From the district office, we have many of our specialists that are housed there, but if you go up on any given day, you won't find them there. You'll find them all out in buildings. We have what's kind of called the all-hands-on-deck plan that these guys very ingeniously devised, and our folks are out there. They're working with kids in classrooms, they're working with principals, they're working with families. They rarely are in our office. So we have professional learning community work that we do, and they are, we have like groups that get together. So our autism groups, for example, will get together, our autism specialists, and they will have a professional learning community, really work on problem solving, professionally developing themselves, as well as aligning their goals to the strategic plan that we have. We have leadership teams, we have district level leadership, we have a teacher level leadership team that comes in from all different kinds of teachers and the different kinds of buildings that we have. We also have an in-office or an in-department leadership team. We've really worked hard on aligning the services that we provide with our district strategic plan. So all of our teams are well aware of what that is, and they've all developed individual goals. So the autism specialists have developed a goal related directly to the strategic plan. Our support specialists, also PLC, and they have developed goals directly related to the strategic plan. We provide procedural guidance to buildings all the time. We have monthly meetings. We work with our out-of-district placements. We have about 44 students in out-of-district placements right now that are in more therapeutic, higher level of care type placements. We have staffing support, and we do a lot of collaboration with our gen ed counterparts in the Office for School Performance, because we know that special ed can't really just be about special ed if we're going to serve all students. It needs to be about everybody. We also do kind of a number of different kinds of community interactions and supports. So we have a parent engagement plan, and 4 times a year or so we have right in here, parents come and have different opportunities to learn. Just last couple weeks ago, we had a speaker named Dr. Rick Robinson come in and talk about trauma-informed care, just to give you an example of the kind of thing that our parents can attend. We have a really strong relationship with our friends over at Northwest Regional ESD, and they also operate a couple of our out-of-district programs. They also convene all the directors from the area so we can learn from each other and kind of have our own big sort of version of a PLC. We work with FACT. FACT is called Families and Communities Together, and that is a required community agency that's in each state that is designed explicitly for the purpose of advocating for and supporting parents who have students with special needs. We already talked about the legislative work. We have several university partnerships. Right now, for example, we're partnering with George Fox, and we have a number of our teachers who have general education licenses getting special education endorsements. And George Fox does that class right here in Hillsboro, and people don't need to go anywhere to do it. They can just do it right here. I do lots of bigger community work, as Travis was mentioning, but one of the big things that I do is work on a state mental health committee where we look at the big, giant picture of mental health care in Oregon and talk about different problem-solving issues related to that. We have an inclusion collaborative that we've formed actually as of this year, where we're able to go and look at other districts and see what they're doing related to inclusive education and try and learn from them, and then they come to us and try and learn from us as well. We work with the Oregon Department of Education, and we also have a lot of local business partnerships. Our community transition program, if you haven't seen it ever, it'd be a neat thing to see. They are 18 to 21-year-old students, and they often are out in the community doing job internships, working on career skills, having job shadows, those kinds of things, and some of them also have paid employment. So that's a really neat piece too. And just to kind of take a look at what's ahead, we're going to continue to build capacity for academic differentiation and behavioral supports. That's a constant mission. I don't know that we'll ever be totally done with it, but that's something that's a huge focus of ours. We're continuing to collaborate with our general education counterparts. We're working toward education for each student in their neighborhood school, and that is our ultimate goal. We are partnering with our Human Resources Department to recruit and retain special education staff. That is a difficult challenge for us, and so we're working on that. And also increasing supports for our students with mental health and behavioral challenges through our various community partnerships, and we're just going to continue to try and strengthen those this year. We have a lot of advocacy, legal and legislative ESSA-related advocacy, so there's lots of laws related to ESSA that we need to work on. We are also going to continue to kind of do that what we call the head and the heart work for inclusion. So there's the things that you do to include kids, but then there's the way that you feel about doing it and why you do it. And so we need to work on both of those things, as we have been for a while, and we'll probably always work on those with our staff. And then also our latest goal is to kind of create an inclusion conference that really focuses on how do we incorporate all of our kids and really focus on specific strategies for our students who experience disability and also other kinds of learning differences. And so that's something that we may be working toward for next October. So that's what's ahead. And then we kind of just like this slide. You guys may have seen this before, but it is, I'll just read the bottom part really quick, and that is that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And so that really, of course, speaks to this ideal and this value that we have about really honing into each individual child by name, strength, and need, and understanding what they need, and then providing that for them so they can flourish and meet their potential. So I think that's it.
any questions or comments? Mark?
Can you explain a little bit, you mentioned that recruiting and retaining staff is difficult or challenging. Can you explain a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, so there's not only a national teacher shortage, but for fields like special education that tend to be particularly challenging for teachers and that also carry a number of big paperwork requirements that our general ed teachers don't need to quite engage in as much. We just have a really hard time finding staff to even apply for positions sometimes. And this is the case all around Washington.
So it's not unique to us?
This is not unique to Hillsboro. This is a Oregon and national problem. So is there anything that you would want to add to that?
No, I think just the partnerships that we have with our
Yeah.
different universities we're trying to find ways to grow.
We're trying to create as many pipelines as we can.
So I had a couple questions.
Yeah.
The first was just wondering about how if the care coordinators collaborate with the graduation coaches, or is there any type of information to help them find out what it is that they need? That's something we're talking about in our earlier session, like with attendance and getting students what they need. Is there any intersection between the two?
Mhm. So the care coordinators meet in like a care group in the buildings that they're in. And so they're staffing kids who are just really having a rough time on some level or another and needing more support. So what they do is they look at the data that is related to those specific students that they're looking at. So they look at all those kinds of data. Now, do they collaborate specifically with the graduation coach? I don't know the answer to that. I know that they need to have that data in order to know what kinds of supports a student needs. I don't know if they're working directly with those coaches or not. I would have to. The what?
Maybe through SST.
Yeah, so we have a student study team, and oftentimes students are going through that process. And what that is when a student has a concern related to them, a parent or a teacher or a counselor or really anybody can refer them to what we call the SST process. And then that team's job, a little bit different than the care team, but that team's job is to really look at their performance and then try and start to implement some interventions before we're doing anything like labeling them with a disability or some type of other label. So the idea is that team really works on designing some interventions for the student, and then the idea would be that the team goes back and the teacher works on those interventions with the student, and then they come back to the SST team and talk about, okay, this was effective, this wasn't effective, here's our data for this, and then do we need to continue this, do we need to try something new, those kinds of things. So there's a few avenues in which we can deal with our students, whether they're having academic difficulties, social emotional difficulties, family difficulties, those kinds of things.
And then the other question I had was on the behavioral and mental health and community partnerships. What kind of additional support are we looking for those partnerships to bring to the school district? And then just in regards to funding, I know that there's, we were actually talking about, like, is there any opportunities for like looking at specific that, or we can get funding from our county, which is social services, or do we partake in any of that, or are we left off the whole?
Great questions. So I'll answer the second part first, which is that you might have heard me mention that I'm involved in this sort of state mental health committee. That's where we advocate for a lot of funding for districts for mental health. So we are involved in that, and then we're also involved in trying to, that group is really working on trying to generate some legislative sort of propositions to bring to the table related to mental health funding, because every single district in Oregon is concerned about that right now, including ourselves. And so the answer is yes, we're very involved in that process. Tell me again what your other, it was the mental health supports. And,
behavioral and mental health partnerships, like what services we want.
Yes.
Community partners for.
So I'll just give you an example of like a community partnership that we have right now. Wendy Ramos did a great job organizing a partnership with Pacific University in which their clinical psych interns came in, and we have, Wendy, is it 3 or 4? 2. Okay, 2. We have 2 that are working right now, and they're providing direct support, direct mental health support to kids and families. And so This is the first year that we've done that, but those are the kinds of partnerships that we need to look at and continue to expand. We also we have a good relationship with Washington County Mental Health and with Department of Human Services, but there are also some things that we're looking at that we could do to even enhance the services that they provide. But we really want to look at bringing those services into schools rather than having families have to go out to those services. So I think the more that we can bring in, and certainly from a research perspective, the more that we can bring in, the more likely kids are to access that support. So, okay.
Martin?
Elaine, thank you so much for your passion in this area, and Sarah and Matt and Wendy. It's awesome to have you here. It's an area that I'm passionate about as well. My colleague is Kristen Burke in Washington County, and Washington County as a local government has just stood up, gone big in this area with the Hawthorne Walk-In Center for mental health and addictions care. And so as a district, we can really capitalize on that resource uniquely because it's right in Hillsboro on the Max line at Gillum Young Parkway. Former Yahoo space. 7-day-a-week walk-in. When you really understand what causes adverse childhood experiences, it gets right back into the community and the family. It's two leading causes are dissolution of the family, basically divorce or breakup, and substance abuse. And so these are things that the adults in the household are doing. So, getting them to go to the Hawthorne Walk-In Center can be huge. And that leaves the student that we can, assist in the school. So I think there is a role for somehow getting these adults in the household to go get the care they need, create a good family setting. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I am a huge fan of this, and perhaps, and I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us, we want to do what we need to do as a board to help you succeed in this area. My sense is that there's a lot more work to be done. We're in a very good place. Principal Wendy and Dr. Rick gave a seminar session at the conference, the OSBA conference last weekend, and I rushed up to them, and they knew all about you guys. They particularly, I commended Carmen, and they go, oh yeah, we've been to Lincoln Street. And so they're really very excited about the work that Hillsboro School District, you all are doing, and we are doing. But we need to do so much more. That's my sense. And so my eagerness and enthusiasm needs to be guided by you all and Mike as the board takes, appropriate action to really grow this aspect of our services. I don't know if that was a question or a statement, but I'm excited to roll my sleeves and work with you.
Yeah.
Just to tack on to what Martin was saying, two things that we have planned. January, we're going to have Elaine back for a work session. And it really is to help the board understand the growing mental health and behavioral needs that are occurring throughout our school district, as well as the state, as well as the nation. So we want you to better understand that and what our plans are moving forward, as well as some of the work that's being done now, just in a more comprehensive way. So this isn't the last you'll see of Elaine. She will be back January to do a more focused session on that particular aspect of things. It's something you hear a lot about in the community. It's something that you hear about when you talk to any of our staff members. It's a challenging situation, and moving forward, we need to be prepared for that. We also are going to plan a trauma-informed field trip for you. So we'll take you to some of the sites, and so you can see what we have in place currently, just see it in real time. So thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, financial report, Adam?
Yeah, included in your packet was this month's financial report, and I'm happy to answer any questions with anything to do in there. But while I have the chance, I just want to thank the board and the community for all the work that went into getting the bond passed. I just am so excited about the opportunities this is going to bring to our kids and our community. It's awesome. So again, happy to answer any questions, but thank you all.
Any questions or comments for Adam about the financial report? I have a question.
Yeah.
When do you move on?
When am I leaving?
When do we get CFO Morrison?
Well, not until the bonds are sold.
Okay.
So we're going to close on the bonds on December 21st.
Can't wait to hear what he says.
I'm kind of working my way out. I didn't butt into the executive session tonight. I'm trying to step back, be available whenever anybody asks, but I think December will probably be my last time in this seat. But I'll be around for 5 years.
We're gonna miss you. I wasn't asking because I was anxious to get rid of you, but we are, I think, all very excited for Michelle also, so, you know.
If I may add to that, we're looking at January 1 as the transition for 3 positions, and that would be for Adam to transition over to the capital project side of things, for Michelle to move into the CFO. She's getting closer, you can tell she's working on it. So she'll be making that transition January 1, and then we'll also have Casey, who will oversee and be the operations officer for things. I will get that out to you in a more detailed way, but in a nutshell, those are the things that would happen on January 1. Am I missing any of the January 1 stuff?
It's an admin role too, right?
Sorry?
Wasn't there an admin role too?
Well, Jim Peterson, who's currently in facilities, will be moving over into the
that's a March
construction.
transition.
Yeah.
So those are, January 1, those are the main ones, but I'll get you more detailed. But it's probably appropriate we talk to some of the people involved before we know.
It's not, that one wasn't a secret. So
No, that one wasn't.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to policies for the first reading. And the first policy is policy BDDH, which Mr. Everton wanted to speak about. So are you ready to join us up here now? Thanks for waiting a little bit. Come on down.
Do I still give my name and address?
You don't have to say your address, just your name.
Okay.
Right?
My name's Joe Everton. I have kids at Century and Imlay. I wanted to comment today on the policy changes that I've seen in the working sessions for BDDH, BDDH-AR, and BDDC. This is around the policy of public comment, so I'm talking about commenting. So I heard some of the working meeting, I was there for some of it, and I also had a brief chat with Jackie Spross that really put me at ease about some of my concerns. The way I understand it, a lot of the changes that I'm looking at are about making sure that it's clear that we can't be commenting on staff issues on any given staff people. I understand that, and I support that. So that, I'm totally for that. My concerns are still about some of the language that's used in this change. So, I still believe that the language is too broad. According to policy, a board chair can block a comment for any reason. I've met a lot of the current board, and I have no reason to believe this language will ever be abused. I.e., when I say abuse, I mean turning down a comment because you don't want to hear it, right? That's what I would term abuse. And I can't see anybody here doing that, but I think the proper way to write a policy is the language we would want to apply to any board, right? And so I sent an idea to Jackie, and I've had another idea since about some alternatives. I think it could be kind of narrowed down so not so much power is given. And that was what I wanted to talk about. The one idea I had that I was sharing with Jackie kind of centered around maybe having a vote before a comment is blocked. Another idea I had is perhaps just remove the language in question, which is stuff like may be invited at the discretion of the board chair, who is invited by the board chair. So take these out and instead specifically call out things that the board chair might block a comment for. Just be more specific and less broad. And this issue is important to me. I got to know the school board and how it works a bit better last year. I'm not an expert, but I appreciate the ability, the privilege of being able to come up here and comment. It's important to me, and I think it's an important part of how the board works. And I think, just one last point I have here. It's important for me to be able to go on record with my ideas and concerns. And this is all recorded, and I understand that. And I think it's an important part of accountability and transparency, which are ideals I'm sure we all embrace. So I just want to suggest that we revise that part again with that in mind. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Everton. I appreciate you timing yourself, because that was the very first time I ever had to use this on a public speaker, and I didn't do it right, so thank you, that was very helpful. Okay, Mike, take it away. That was our only public comment. So.
Well, I think Joe did a nice job teeing us up here. So as you know, this policy has to do with public comments at board meetings. And we did talk about this last month, and since that time, well, one of the things that proceeded was we received input from OSBA. So the policy outline that you see here is guided by input from OSBA. We also received input from board members, and that is reflected in this draft. And we also received a couple pieces of community input since this was last floated and we last talked about it. So we're at a point here where this is ready to review, be our first reading, and we're looking for you to just give us some feedback and see if we're on the right track, so that in a month we can go ahead and vote on this policy. So that's where we are.
Okay, so we are just discussing this. I see Kim, so go for it.
One of the hot topics I went to on Saturday was about this topic, about the legislative changes and OSBA's very, very strong recommendation about staff, managing staff accommodations being taken at a board meeting. There's a current case in the 9th Circuit District that they really feel is concerning by allowing one type of testimony and not the other. You're showing preference in that allowance, and they are very afraid that there is legal suit to soon follow for any Oregon district that allows that. So I know that's where we were already heading, but OSBA was really, really adamant about that. It was really important that even for accommodation not to take anything.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? I have a couple suggestions to propose. I think that the draft policy has taken into account some of the community feedback that we've received, but I've gotten a couple of concerns about number 3 in the public comment in board meetings in the draft policy, and where it says at the discretion of the board chair, anyone wishing to speak before the board. And I think, as Mr. Everton said, we really never had a time when the board chair said, oh, that person can't speak. But my suggestion is that instead of that language, which seems to be problematic, we maybe say something like, in accordance with board policy, anyone wishing to speak, so that we can refer back to policy that's pretty clear about what type of comments will be allowed. So that's a suggestion that I have. Do people like say, like, thumbs up, and then we can put it in the draft, or how do we usually don't make changes at first reading, so what do you
But just conceptually, if you'd like us to make this change, we would love to know that.
So, some people nobody seems like, no, that's terrible, so.
And you'll sweep through kind of a complete document for that similar thought. I don't know how many there are.
Well, I see it in number 3. Val, do you feel comfortable in kind of combing through to see anything else that's kind of similar to at the discretion of the board chair and reframing it in accordance with board policy?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. And then we can probably put that in there. Yeah.
Excellent. I had another one, but Martin, I'll let you go first. Go.
Thanks, Lisa. I was just going to note at 4, there's kind of a corollary, an individual who was invited by the board chair. So that would need to be reworked to basically say an individual who was speaking to the board, something like that. There's all kinds of, I think what Wayne is alluding to is that there's, when you reread it with that in mind, there's more tweaks and nudges.
I like an individual who is speaking to the board. I think that gets to the gist of what we want in number 4. Are you with us on that one, Val?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other comments from folks? Erica? No?
Wayne, press this button.
Wayne?
What will be the process? I know that this version goes on public read. Is there a way to kind of make an updated public read so maybe it's available to the community as well as to what we're thinking, so that community comment isn't lagging behind our I don't know how that works.
You're all looking down here like I should know that answer.
We
Val,
can
is
look
there
at
a way to
Val.
do that?
Everybody's switching
Well,
like that.
Yeah, let's look at Val.
The first thing that comes to mind is we do have a special session on November 28th, and we could just, I don't know, do you want to add that third little item? And it doesn't have to be much of a discussion, but then it would be posted in the packet. Would that work?
We do have a special session, so that's
Sure,
a great idea.
let's do that.
Just include
It
it.
opens it to ability to publish and
Mhm.
it's a second reading that's available to the public in a form that be ready to
Yeah, because I mean, we've
review.
done that with policies in the past, sometimes where we've had more than one reading.
Great,
Okay.
excellent. Thanks, Wayne. And Val also, great idea. Erica?
Oh, I'm thinking about the same thing about the rewording where every time it mentions the board chair, is it gonna be saying according to the policy or the board? For example, on number 1 at the end, unless otherwise authorized by the policy.
I would say with
Or
number
board.
1, like we did tonight, I think that we should say the board chair because the board chair, whoever it may be, is the one sort of organizing the flow of the meeting.
Okay.
So I think in number 1, it ought to stay there. But I think like in number 6, for
Number 6.
example,
Yeah, that's the next one. I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Number 6, at the discretion of the board chair. So would that be policy or board?
Let us read through it with that lens, and we have the idea, and we'll make sure that we strip Lisa of her power to.
just I secretly wrote this policy myself and I sent it in, intending to be board chair forever.
I think number 6 is actually more about facilitation. You as the facilitator of the meeting will decide when you're gonna refer somebody and who they're going to. You would point them to the right person rather than just any of us start.
Do we need to even say then at anybody's discretion, since that's just general operation? Like, could we perhaps just say questions asked by the public may be referred? We could just take that unfriendly verbiage out potentially. I have a feeling that Val is gonna tackle this and make it a lot more palatable though. That's my, Jackie? Thank you.
I think for that.
I was like, I don't think she
Yeah, I
was
do
ready.
think it's important that we recognize that while we're still following board policy, the board chair is still a facilitator of the meeting. We need to make sure that, that the policies are being followed and that we're still, within time and with everything else that's going on. So I think that in some instances, yes, like number 1, authorized by the board chair, maybe not authorized, but yeah. So I think it's important to remember that there's a reason we have a board chair too.
Okay, so calling myself Lisa. So I had one other suggestion. We took out from number 5 the time limit for audience participation time, and we did that for the sake of consistency since we don't normally enforce that time limit. But I have had board meetings in the past and even before I was on the board that lasted a very long time when many people came to offer public comment. And so I wondered if we might be interested in adding a little caveat about something like if the audience time is projected to exceed 1 hour, let's say that would be 20 people who come, 20 times 3 is 60 minutes, 60 minutes equals 1 hour, then the individual speaker's time may be reduced. And we can either say to 2 minutes or to 1 minute, something like that, so that everyone who comes to speak might still have an opportunity to speak, but so that we don't necessarily have 4 hours of comment time. It's just an idea that occurred to me and I wondered what we thought. I think Martin pushed his button first and then Jackie.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I need to push this button down to get picked up?
I don't think so.
Okay, very good. Am I amplified if I just use my? So if you recognize me, that turns my mic on?
I think it's always on.
It's
You
always
have a
on.
live,
It's
hot
always
mic.
on.
Be careful.
It's on, so don't.
Good to know. Number 6, which for those in the audience, questions asked by the public at the discretion of the board chair be referred to the superintendent for follow-up. I think what that's getting at is there's going to be a lot of times where people will come up and they're really not talking to the administration, they're talking to us as board members. And it may be like in a boundary adjustment, which that's coming to us and they're always, very passionate for cause. I mean, I understand that, but they may be asking us to vote no on something. So it may not be appropriate to refer it to the superintendent for administration action. It may be a member of the public speaking to us. And so I like the idea that out of maybe a long string of things, there might be only one or two things that are actually belong to the administration, and the rest of it really is just for our ears and our consideration. So I kind of like it, but the word discretion of the board chair seems to be something that a lot of people don't like, and it's not just the comments tonight. That's a flashpoint for a lot of people. So if there's some other way to allow the board chair, whom we've all put in this position of authority, so we're very happy with the work the board chair does as a board, to be a gatekeeper on some things that we think should go to the board, to the administration, versus things that are just for us to consider.
Thank you.
So the time that you just mentioned, so the purpose of that is to allow more people to speak, is how I see that.
So the way I'm envisioning it is in the unlikely event, it's happened 4 times since I've been on board, where we have a bunch of people who want to speak. So what was in policy before said that audience time is limited to 30 minutes, and we would waive that, but we have the authority to say, okay, first come, first served, only people who are fit into that 30-minute window are allowed to speak. And we took that out, which I advocated for, and I'm glad that we did, because we didn't ever enforce it. But if we have 50 people who want to speak, I think that it should be something that we have in policy where we can decide as a unit to decrease the amount of time that is offered. Instead of 3 minutes, maybe it's 2 minutes, or maybe it's 1 minute, or maybe we don't say, we just say maybe decreased, and then we wait and see what the situation allows.
I think it would allow more people to be able to speak.
Right.
It would also be more consistent, because the previous policy was, we could, if we wanted to, extend the time, and to me that's, why did you do it for this topic but not this topic? And so I think it's important that we stay consistent with that. So I actually like that idea.
Any other thoughts on that, Wayne?
Just, I think 30 minutes when it was an issue was never going to be enough.
Right.
But in each of those cases, an hour sort of was, seemed to work out, and I don't know if that's built on room capacity or what all factors might be. One way or another, there's you've either written something in with a time limit or you haven't, and then you're stuck trying to decide whether to enforce it or change the rules or describe, hey, this is. So you're still in that funny position that might be hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Maybe you're saying 60 minutes would be a better time limit than, I don't know. There's not much difference when it comes down to it. I think the struggle you'll have is when it comes down to a large room that hasn't gotten to speak, you'll have to make a call whether you're going to hear everyone, and it'll be difficult to shorten their amount of speaking as it was to even manage the 3-minute times, which I went through. So I'm not sure where I come around, that I was happy to see it go, mainly in that you're likely to want to hear everybody, and you'll likely find it difficult to employ any wording that would limit that. So I kind of feel like maybe it was good just to leave it out.
Kim?
I'm leaning where Wayne is, because I think if you say decrease, then you actually have to have a table of how much.
Right.
You couldn't just decide, oh, this month we're going to decrease to 2 minutes, and next month we're going to decrease to 1 minute. So you may end up in that same cycle of you either hear everybody or you don't hear everybody. I think on the nights when we've had an hour to an hour and a half, oftentimes we will say, if you don't need all 3 minutes, please be considerate of the 100 people in line behind you. And maybe that's just enough that.
I've seen a lot of head nods. I think that the idea went where ideas go to die. Do we all agree? Okay, super. Alrighty. Any other comments about BDDH? No. Okay, so the next steps for this policy, there's going to be some wordsmithing that happens behind the scenes, and then we're going to put it on the agenda and in the special session packet for November 28th. And then it will, in theory, if it's ready, join us for a vote in December. Okay. So now policy GCDA and GDDA and IICC.
So I'm here to talk about the criminal records check and fingerprinting and for volunteers specifically. House Bill 2992 passed in 2017 and it's a policy. We are required to adopt the same language for background checks for volunteers, and specifically volunteers who have direct unsupervised contact with students. And so the language in this policy that OSBA is recommending is a policy that reflects what we currently do and use. And some of the legal requirements that are updated in the language of the policy align with our current practices for GCDA and GBDA. And then with IICC, the OSBA recommendations, we took out citizens and put in community patrons. And then we exceed what the law requires because we actually do a nationwide criminal background check versus just a statewide check. So those are the key pieces I wanted to point out. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, can you think of a time when a volunteer has direct unsupervised contact with a student?
I can't, but I think that I'm seeing through your eyes that some people may.
Okay.
Did you want?
I'm curious what that example might be, and then how do you then go about implementing? My fear is that someone's going to say it has something to do with high school activities, but then high school activities are frequently not on a school campus, so how you don't, as a volunteer, track those hours. So if I go to a band competition or something for the day, there's not a check-in, check-out process where someone's making sure I've got all those things. Just curious about the logistics of what all that ends up looking like. In elementary, I can't think of an example of when you have unsupervised direct one-on-one time with a student.
Yes, I would agree as well that probably the secondary, high school components, just because students are also older as well, I think that comes into play around things, but I think it's really critical, that we have systems in place and structures in place, and we would be working with, our principals and making sure that they understand this as we kind of roll this out, because now this is, there's what I call the policy and the language that we have to follow that's put into these guidelines, and because it's tied to a Senate bill, anytime that we have those kinds of things, we always do a rollout of PD and what the expectations in regards to those pieces are. And we did have conversations with Val, and Tammy and I were talking through about specifically high school, when you have someone who is overseeing a position for, let's say, drama, and you're there overseeing that, but you also have volunteers that are supporting students in those pieces. And so I think that's why we want to make sure that we're doing a thorough process when it comes to that background check. And if there's any question that comes up, we have a protocol and process that we use, and Tammy Heckenleibel in our HR department helps go through that piece. And we also bring it sometimes to our HR admin team to vet out those things, or we have conversations with those individuals to make sure that student safety is, at the forefront of what we want for our schools and all of those activities that kids are involved in. But on the flip side, we also want volunteers to help support, make those activities and those events successful in our schools. So, but safety is the number one priority.
Thank you. Jackie?
I know that I can speak to volunteering in elementary school on field trips when you have to take one of the girls to the bathroom, or you're on you're in a group and you're all kind of going on your own with these kids. So, and also marching band. I mean, Century Marching Band goes to Hawaii every 4 years, and I was in charge of like 9 kids in the airport and keeping them together, making sure that they didn't go anywhere. And there was nobody. I mean, the band director was there somewhere in the airport, but it was just me and these kids. And I know the band has done this process already, and we have it all figured out as far as, double checking who's been through the process, who's been approved, when they're expired, when they have to redo it and all that. So I did have a question. You said on the volunteers that you took out the word citizens and replaced it with something?
Community patrons.
Because it's still in here as citizens.
I think Val just sent an update.
Yeah. Oh, she did, that's right, okay, I'm sorry, I printed out the old one. Sorry. Okay.
Wayne, you were lit up and now you're not lit up.
A similar comment, there are situations. I later took it unclick because true one-on-one versus one parent on group is a little bit different situation. But there are plenty of situations where teams, even in elementary school, revised teams or something, where kids are coming and going, parents are coming and going, and one adult is there with multiple kids or right. So one.
Mark and then Erica.
Yeah, like you said, look, I know the Lego robotics at the last was taught by volunteers, so we've used the term one-on-one a few times here, but that's not what I think the situation part says. It's direct unsupervised contact with students. So 1 and 4 is still covered by this, right?
Yeah, and it's the requirement of the background check.
Right, the background check is if you're gonna be unsupervised with a group of students, that still qualifies. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily have to be one-on-one, correct?
Right.
And Erica.
I just had a question on the two paragraphs that are highlighted, that are adding on there. The second one says,
Is that what IICC?
the volunteer ones, IICC, yes.
Okay.
That any person authorized by the district for volunteer service that will not have direct unsupervised contact with students will be required to undergo a national criminal records check. So what is the difference, I guess, what is it that their volunteers are needing to submit? Is there something that's additional to what we're doing now?
Well, I think what it is that we go above and beyond what's expected because we have the online, opportunity for them to fill out those forms to volunteer. And I think this language it's a little bit confusing the way that it's stated. Because it says it will not have direct unsupervised contact with students versus supervised contact with students. And so I think that's the piece that when they are unsupervised, we're still doing criminal background checks for volunteers when it comes to them being supervised or unsupervised. And we tend to be more comprehensive, I would say, when it comes to those pieces. Except in the case if, a parent just wants to come and have lunch with their child or something like that. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like you said, you currently have to go online and do the form. Is there anything that additional that they have to do?
No. Unless, of course, there's a need for follow-up through our department.
Thank you.
Good questions, thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on to IGBI with Travis.
Thank you, Lisa. In the passage of ESSA in 2015, you see OSB coming up with recommendations to bring our policies in line with the Every Student Succeeds Act language, and this is an example of that, shifting from English language learners to bilingual education, and striking that first paragraph. Also, I wanted to draw your attention to the last paragraph that talks about multilingual parents accessing relevant information. So happy to answer any questions about how it is that we do that. Anything else you'd like to ask about the children's policy?
Thank you, Travis. Any questions for Travis? About IGBI on page 33. Thought I heard about it, but I didn't. I did. Okay, Martin.
Travis, is the buzzword going to change? We use ELL as, a handle. Is that going to change?
My crystal ball tells me that it will someday in the future, but we've been using bilingual education as sort of a term, as an umbrella term for all the different types of service that we provide for a while now. Dual language is part of bilingual education. We talk about English language development as part of our effort to serve multilingual students. So in my time in this district, we've moved from ESOL to ESL to ELL to ELs, and now just bilingual students or emerging bilinguals. So the term, I think, gets more broad as we get more diverse and we learn multiple languages and grow up in bilingual families. So I'm sticking with bilingual education and bilingual students for a little while.
Okay. So school us on the board with the term we should use. So I should purge ELL?
I think English learner is or EL
okay.
is the most common term you hear right now.
Okay.
So cut one L off.
Okay.
And we use emerging bilinguals a lot because that's a very asset-based way instead of a deficit. Like I know I'm learning a language because I don't have one. Instead, I'm growing into my bilingualism. So emerging bilingual if you're really hip,
Okay.
And yeah, if you just want to hit the company line.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. It's interesting how that changes over time.
Thank you, Travis.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to KBA and KBAAR with Beth.
So KBA is public records and its accompanying ARs provided for you as well. Generally, we don't provide you with ARs because the board is not required to approve those, but in this case, because the AR provides so much additional context, we thought it might be helpful for you to see. So in the last legislative session, there were additional regulations passed about the timing within which public bodies needed to respond to requests for public records information. And so that's the primary impetus behind the changes that you see in the policy, is that you're required to acknowledge a request within 5 business days, and then within 10 business days or within 10 days of that initial response, you're required to either have your response or provide an explanation as to why you need more time. And it establishes the availability or the ability of a public body to restrict the records that are being requested, to clarify the request, and also to establish a fee schedule if the request is overly cumbersome.
Any questions or comments about KBA or the AR?
Let me just say that I'm happy to report that really it's been a value of the Hillsboro School District before this legislation was enacted to really be responsive to people that have inquired about public records requests. And so for us, this doesn't really represent any change in practice, so I'm pleased to say that.
Mark?
Just curious, is this part of, are most of these part of the ongoing process of us going through and finding ones, or are these just triggered by something else? Like, I know we have Mike and Jackie maybe, or and Val, some people have been going through and finding a few every session. Is that what's going on?
This one was a big one because of the new legislation
Okay.
passed through the last session. So we would have had to do this one sooner rather than later.
There are a mix of them. I think that the December meeting has a huge chunk of ones because of us going through them. But some are required to be done sooner rather than later.
There's always a bunch after a legislative session.
Right.
Yep.
I'm getting that.
All right, we have reached item 10, which is approval of our consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
So it has been moved by Kim and seconded by Jackie to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion about that? Okay, so Kim made the motion and Jackie seconded it to approve the consent agenda as it's presented. If you would like to approve the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, please say no. Consent agenda is approved. It's kind of hard to say consent agenda so many times that close together. It's kind of like a punch list. Okay, so now we're back to our action items. 11A, amend the appointments of the budget committee members. Michelle.
Yeah, I can
You
speak
got
to
it.
that. Thank you, Lisa. The board meeting where we had appointed our new budget committee members, the appointment to position members did not align with the terms as intended by the board for the appointees with the most votes to get the longest terms. And so in order to remedy that, we have a reappointment request here tonight. And so the recommendation is in your board packet that the board amend the appointment of the selected candidates to the budget committee, appointing Christopher Clark to position 1, Michael Smith to position 2, Alexander Diaz to position 6, and Elizabeth Christensen to position 4. And I have been in contact with them, and they are aware of this change. Any questions?
Any questions for Michelle about that? Okay, then we are looking for a motion to amend the appointment of the budget committee members and find some language on page 79.
I move we amend the appointment of the selected candidates to the Budget Committee, appointing Christopher Clark to position 1, Michael Smith to position 2, Alexander Diaz to position 6, and Elizabeth Christensen to position 4.
Second.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Jackie and seconded by Mark to amend the appointment of the selected candidates to the Budget Committee. Is there any discussion? Okay. If you would like to amend the appointment of the candidates to the Budget Committee as moved by Jackie and seconded by Mark, please say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, please say no. Okay, those appointments are amended. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we're going to recess our board meeting, and I realize that I didn't read this before. I hereby recess this meeting of the Hillsboro School District Board of Directors and call to order the meeting of the Hillsboro School District Local Contract Review Board under ORS 279C.335. I'm not sure actually how to read ORSs out loud. So that's good. All right. Adam.
Do we still make a motion?
That's all you need.
I totally want to make this motion. I move that the board approve the findings of fact supporting a specific exemption from competitive bidding requirements for use of the construction management general contractor process for the project at Reedville Elementary School.
I heard two voices, but I identified Jackie, so I'm going for Jackie. I'm sorry, whoever the other voice was. Okay, so it has been moved by Kim and seconded by Jackie to approve the findings of fact. So is there any discussion about that? Okay, if you would like to approve the findings of fact and that support the specific exemption from competitive bidding, as Kim moved and Jackie seconded, please say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, please say no. Okay, do you want to do while we're still in the local contract with the board? Okay, so I hereby adjourn the meeting of the Hillsboro School District Local Contract Review Board, and I reconvene the meeting of the Hillsboro School District Board of Directors. Michael, do you want to share some information?
As Rick sneaks out here, let me just say that we are super happy to have Rick as an advisor through all of this bond work. We've worked with him for a number of years, and he's a guy that has just a high level of expertise in this area. He understands the market conditions. More importantly, he understands what's it like to work in the educational field and to build schools and to work around school projects. He hires top-notch people. He's a great problem solver, and he's committed to getting these done on time and on budget, and just really happy to have him continue as a partner with us. So thank you.
Excellent.
Now you can count.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, we find ourselves at item 12 on our agenda, HCU and HEA reports. We welcome you up here.
Hi everyone, Jill Golay, HEA President. I am on this day during Teacher Appreciation Week. I am very honored to have the position of the HEA President and feel very privileged to represent 1,187 amazing and fabulous teachers. On behalf of my fellow colleagues, I wanted to say thank you again for last month's proclamation for American Ed Appreciation this week, and knowing that you're going to be delivering many, many apples here this week to many folks and buildings. I just want to say thank you for recognizing all that we do. And I'm elated, like the rest of you, that we passed the bond. It was wonderful to work with such fabulous people that had so much energy and focus, and it truly was a pleasure, and I believe that we collaborated together and worked well together to make a difference for the community and the kids and the teachers. I believe that this, the passage of the bond can represent the beginning of a great continuum that will be shaped by our ongoing collaboration and a mutual concern for the conditions of not only the buildings and working conditions and the structures, but beyond that into the classrooms and looking at improving the students' classrooms and the betterment of not just the students, but the success of our students and our teachers as well. And I just wanted to share that tomorrow is our rep assembly at the office, and we've invited Rep. Janine Solomon to come and speak with us and kind of have a little coffee chat, but it'll be more like an evening dessert chat as she prepares to move forward with the legislative session so that she knows that our needs and as educators here in Hillsboro. And I wanted to say thank you for the support around the class size and classrooms. It's my understanding that we have a new teacher at North Plains and half-time teacher at Lennox, and I really appreciate that and the focus. And you know, I listened to some of you speak, and I believe that you do truly have the heartbeat of the district and what's going on in the classrooms and with the teachers and students. And I believe that we do need to continue to work smarter and not necessarily harder, and I think that we can work together and make a huge difference. And finally, we have our, we usually have a First Friday, but this month it is Fake First Friday, which is this coming Friday at 4, where we invite educators to come together, and we've made a commitment to focus on the stable and adequate funding. And so, of course, last time we met, we wrote mini postcards around the bond, but this time when we meet, we'll be writing postcards to the legislators, letting them know the needs that we have as educators. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Of course, you know, for those who are watching video, it's Devin Hunter, president of HCU, Hillsboro College United. I want to again also congratulate the community for passing a really great bond. It's really interesting that most of the work, the physical work, is going to be done by contractors and laborers and that such. There's going to be a small team, well, small yet mighty team over at facilities. That is going to be doing a lot of the work of the management. But there's this whole piece that's technology. And as a person in the technology department, we are kind of, as a worker, there's a very daunting task of getting a lot of Chromebooks out very quickly, of getting new computers out to teachers, new classroom machines out. And if you don't know, we have currently 4 site techs, so 4 people who go out and responsible for buildings. We have 1 person on the help desk, and that's basically it for desktop support. And we currently have 2, hopefully hiring a 3rd, network tech. So the number of people that we have in the technology department to help push out all this wonderful technology that the community just said, hey, you need to buy all this stuff. It's pretty lean. So I'm sure Don has a plan. He always has a plan. And I really look forward to spending a lot of time at facilities getting this stuff ready for our kids, because I know that a Chromebook in a student's hands throughout the entire course of the day, every day, makes a difference. Access to technology is critical in the new curriculum that we're turning out, and it's really important that we have that. Talking about the changing gears a little bit to the special education assistants and the wellness rooms, we had an opportunity to tour the wellness rooms. This is the 2nd time I've been out to a wellness room. They're really developing. They're starting, you know, first year was kind of figuring out what's going on. Second year, you're seeing the change from year to year, the lessons learned, the things that are being built. Watching Saida Agigi sort of climb on the climbing wall was really great, and I really hope that other students get that opportunity as well. But as I sit there and watch it, what strikes me is how important the lessons that are being taught in the wellness room are. Because when I went to school, I wasn't taught how to self-regulate. I wasn't taught in the classroom how to be able to handle myself. And a lot of our students haven't been taught that either. They don't know how to properly behave. They don't know how to de-escalate themselves. And they go through their entire life. I have people I know that were still having problems de-escalating in high school. And they would get into fights, and it would really impact their education. And I really want to make sure that this district really focuses, especially on our kinder kids and our first graders, that they really learn at a very young age how to self-regulate and how to de-escalate. Because those skills protect our staff. This is a safety issue from a classified standpoint. Because, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people leave the district, and I'd hate it. I would hate to have someone leave because they get beat up every day by students. And it's a possibility. We have students who don't know how to control themselves, and we really need the lessons taught in the wellness room. We really need wellness rooms at every school. We need these supports for every kid to learn how to self-regulate, because I don't think they want to hurt people. But if you get angry and you start seeing you're super in the red zone, like you're past red zone and even further, you're going to hurt someone. And because that's the power of humanity, is that we can make really amazing things happen or really terrible things happen, just depending on what we've been taught and what we've learned how to apply ourselves. So there's a whole lot going on. I think this is the coolest district to work for. I think this is a really cool time. There's a lot of hope out there. There's a lot of amazement going on, and I really can't wait to get started. So thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, so we'll do superintendent's time and then board of directors time.
Very good. Really pleased with the conference turnout that we just had as we finishing up parent conferences. Just a high degree of parent turnout, and that's a great indicator. It's such an important time of connection. Specifically want to recognize W.L. Henry, who had a 98% turnout for parent conferences. And there's Lisa can tell you the numbers. I want to say there's 5 families that would make 100%, so they're actually reaching out to those 5 families, and they may be going to their doorstep to get to 100%. So we'll see what happens there. So
Is that unprecedented?
it's incredible. I mean, 98% for any school is absolutely incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, excellent. So also want to thank the board for your time at the OSBA convention. Just high degree of participation, and like Martin said, a lot of enthusiasm around there. And we were being congratulated on the bond over and over again. Thanks to Lisa, we co-presented on the session and had a great time doing that. Then I would end with, of course, my thanks regarding the bond as well. We had so many partners that helped make that happen. We had board members that were out there for countless hours, led by fearless leader Kim, who put in hours and hours and hours. We've talked about that. HEA and HCU just did an incredible job coming forward with their folks. Our administrative team was out in force, whether it be on the phones or texting or canvassing. They were out as well, so really appreciate that. And then we had so many partners that also came and helped us out, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce of the City of Hillsboro or Hillsboro Schools Foundation. People over and over again just stepped up to help us. I'm excited about the margin by which we passed, a 2-to-1 margin, absolutely amazing. We had an administrative meeting that morning, and I was not convinced it was going to be 2-to-1. I wasn't convinced. I was nervous, as Rick said. And I'm sure nobody picked up on that. But, very, very humbling for it to go to a 2-to-1 margin. That just speaks to all the work that we've done. And the thing I'm most excited for is our students. It will change the educational experience for our students in such a positive way. And I'm excited to see that all happen and to be a big part of that. So, thank you.
Thank you. You forgot to mention our standing ovation, so you were...
The standing ovation, yeah. After Lisa presented, there was a lot of cheering and standing. It was on their way out, but we still counted it as a standing ovation.
Since none of you guys were at the session, you wouldn't know really that it happened or not, so it's good. Okay, board of directors time. We'll start at Jeff and go this way.
Well, that's because you told us not to go to your.
No, that was why.
Just to clarify that. Yeah, the convention was very inspiring, I have to say. There were a lot of good sessions, and I think we all left enthused. I've also been approached by several community members who have concerns regarding the school-based health center and the current board policy, JHC. There's one local school district that seems to have a policy that aligns with the concerns I've heard, and that's the Beaverton School District. So I would like to request that at our, we revisit policy JHC and discuss it in our next board meeting. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Martin?
I I echo Jackie's comments. I'm looking forward to revisiting that as well. But back to the board, the bond, I want to thank the community. You made headlines. Voters say yes to Hillsboro school bond, so voters, thank you very, very much. And it was a community thing.
Will you keep holding it up while you're talking?
Yeah. For those who are in the audience who still read newspapers, I want to, in my own defense, I got a smartphone too. I got to put in both worlds. But I just truly love to see it in print, and even the Tribune endorsed us. You mentioned some of the city councils, really all the elected entities in town endorsed us in unanimous resolutions from Cornelius, North Plains, Hillsboro, Washington County. And they had declined to weigh in the past, and they were absolutely on board. It's so exciting. Chambers of Commerce, several chambers of commerce, again, unanimous endorsements. The former board, we have a member here in the audience. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. Well, we have 4 members of the former board, as a matter of fact. And so we took the baton and we crossed the finish line. And so it was a long-term thing. And it goes way back to when Mike and his team really built a proposal that the community endorsed. And that was staff work that goes back years. And community involvement, long-range planning, and bond advisory. So, I mean, from start to finish, it was just really, really very satisfying to be one part of that, and a lot of joy. So, thank you. And that's my comments.
Thanks, Mark. Right?
Lisa, would you mind circling back to me?
Sure, I can do that. Don't let me forget. There's a lot of writing on this paper. Erica?
Yeah, back to the conference, it was great, as I mentioned earlier, and I forgot to mention that OSBA is actually developing or created now a color caucus for representatives of color to specifically address issues that affect students of color. And this last meeting that we had, I was elected to represent our area, which is pretty cool. And as they develop and start working, we'll share more with our board about things that OSBA can support us in. And the other thing about W. Henry 98%, I have a student at W. Henry, and I was super, super sick this last week.
Are you one of the 4?
She must be.
That's what I wanted to tell you. I'm not one of the 4. I dragged myself out of bed so that we would get to 100% because I knew that was really, my son was like, we need to get 100. I think they get to like throw pie in the face or something like that to like their teacher or principal. So of course, you know, I had to do something.
How about their board member?
I'm still not very well. So that was really cool to mention that about W. Henry, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to hunt down the other 4. And what else? Super excited about the bond. Thank you, Kim, for your leadership, and we're all excited and just really looking forward to all the changes. And I second Jackie's comment earlier. I really wanted to, that's one of the policies that I wanted to look up as we're reviewing everything right now. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, just tremendously inspired by the conference many of us participated in. It was, now we have to take the lessons we learned and try to implement them. To echo what Martin said, you know, I thank the community for passing the bond, and it is years of work. It's not, you know, as I want to do, use a sports metaphor. We came in and spiked the football at the end of the touchdown drive, but we came in the red zone and had it all teed up for us. So it's great to have the support of the community, and I guess I feel 2 emotions as a result of it. One, you know, pride for all my colleagues and all the work they did, and pride for our community, that our community decided that it was important to invest in the future of our students. So I'm incredibly proud of our community and our responsibility. I understand that it is now our responsibility to spend this money wisely. We've been entrusted with a lot of money, and we need to do a lot of good with it. So pride and responsibility are the things that I'm mostly feeling these days regarding it. So thanks.
You all gonna be shocked if I talk about the bond. Echoing everybody, just thank you as I look out today, the number of volunteers we had and how many of you in this room were volunteers, and how many of you had never done this kind of work before, had never knocked on the door of a stranger or dialed a stranger and pushed past your comfort zones because you knew it was right for kids. I really appreciate it. I called them on election night, my 3 musketeers, and one of them wasn't there. So to Miss Beth, thank you publicly for all you did. Communication is critical, and the amount of information we were able to share as a school district and the high quality of that work, and the party was not the same without you because you were such an integral part of it. And so while I was happy you were with family, I was sad you were not with us. And Adam and Mike, who really did work that's not normally, politics is not normally in your wheelhouse because you are not elected officials, and just thank you again for helping us spread the word about this work. One of our volunteers who was a student was in the audience tonight, and he came up to me when he saw me coming down the stairs and he says, "Do you know we won the bond?" And that's the part that's the best. I've had little guys who are, 6 and 7 be excited, and high schoolers stop me and hug me and thank me. Even high schoolers who won't see the impact of this work, they know that it's going to impact the kids that come after them, and it's going to impact their siblings. And so the pride in this community, people really show that they believe in our kids and they believe that we can educate a workforce. And so just one more time, thanks to everybody. I'm so excited for the work that's ahead, even though it'll be hard and challenging and stressful and budgets will change. It's also a really awesome problem to have, and so happy to work through all of that. Okay, it's a hard act to follow. The bond,
Check your notes.
still, what? Oh, you wanted to do it before me? Oh, sorry, I was gonna, you're at the end of my
Take your
list.
final word.
Okay, good. I apologize, go ahead.
Also, kudos to Kim and all the work that's gone into the bond. It's fantastic. Just a wonderful effort. And a joy to see community come together about around the school system. It's fantastic. I did want to change the topic, and time has come, I guess. It's about, I get emotional, but anyway, about a year ago, it must have been a year ago now, I talked to three of my friends. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can do it. Talked to 3 of my friends and asked them to recommend me on a new path. And yeah, so, and I don't know what they said, but it must have been enough to get me to graduate school. And since then, I've been working for the past year, kind of leaving behind each one of those opportunities that I've had in my life. First, retiring from an Intel engineering career, stepping back from other responsibilities that I have in the community and faith areas to give me time as I ramp up, and I've been working on this degree. And I'm about halfway through, and they assure me that for how busy I think I am right now, it will only get worse in the next 6 months before I see the end of that. And if it's any consolation, before this, I've left behind many things, including robotics teams, so if that means anything to anyone. as a good time, as this year draws to a close, I wanted to just thank everyone for the opportunity that I've had to serve. Sorry about this. To serve on the school board, it's been 6.5 years, and it's been a marvel to be able to contribute. And just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity and for being able to work together. And I just want to let everybody know that it was my intention to resign my board position after the end of our meeting next time, at the end of the year. And so the next meeting would be my last as a board member. It's just been an honor and pleasure to serve with all of you, and I hope to continue doing so in other capacities in the future. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, top that.
I did.
So I almost wish that you would have taken my last word and just waited. How do you follow that? I think I get an advantage because I get a chance to kind of respond to what Wayne said in my board discussion time. Nobody else gets to do that. It sounds like everybody will have the opportunity to thank Wayne next time. But I'll just say before I talk about the other things on my list that I think it's bittersweet for you to be leaving us, Wayne, for a couple of reasons. Before I even met you, I had people tell me that you had a gift for working with students, and it was a passion of yours, and it was something that you were very gifted at. And so I think that's going to definitely be a huge gain for our community to have you in the classroom. So I'm really excited about that next step for you. I also think that it will be a huge loss for our board to say goodbye to you. I think that, and I'm not going to be here in December, so I'm going to say my in-person goodbye right now. I think that you are probably one of the best school board members that our community has ever had, and maybe will ever have. Wayne and I do not always agree. We've disagreed a number of times, but every single time we've disagreed, I've always felt like Wayne was listening to what I was saying and considering my thoughts. Not necessarily being convinced by them, but genuinely listening and having that interest. And that's something that most people can't say. And so I've always felt myself wanting to listen to his thoughts, which are almost always very well thought out and very thoughtful and very in-depth and very reflective. And so I'm really sad that you'll be leaving us. You have huge shoes to fill as board chair. Now you're not even going to be here to help. But like I said, I think it's going to be very exciting for our community to have you as a teacher in our community. I think that will be another gift of service that you'll give us. So thank you for that. Okay, so the rest of my list. I will not be here in December. I have a commitment, so it will be the one meeting this year that I miss. But Kim will be stepping in, and she has run meetings probably like 100 times, so it'll be fine. Don't worry. She's got it under control. Let's see. I wrote down what you had said, Jackie, that you want us to revisit policy JHC and look at the Beaverton policy as a model. And I heard Martin and Erica echo that sentiment. I agree. Obviously, everyone knows that's something I would love to see us revisit. So I think that gives us enough echoes to bring that forward for discussion for the board. So I'm sure that that can be set up soon. So I have two more things. I'll try to be fast. I'm a little bit off kilter. The bond, it's a little bit difficult to work up some excitement, but I am so excited about the bond passing. I felt very confident that we were going to pass, but I did not think that we were going to get to almost 67% approval for the bond. And it's just unreal. It's unbelievable. And it's such a show of support from our community. I am so over the moon about it. And Kim, we can't thank you enough. We can't say thank you enough. We can't give you enough flowers, but we really love and appreciate you and are so grateful for the time that you spent stepping up for us. Thank you for that. Okay, so then the OSBA, just very quickly, as Mike said, we got a standing ovation in our presentation. Only like 7 people walked out, and it was excellent. So nobody really gave us a standing ovation. I think they maybe clapped. Maybe they clapped, I can't remember. And the people who left didn't leave because we were that bad. They left before because we had a confusing title. So don't worry, I think it went well. It was a lot of fun, and the conference itself was a lot of fun too. It was a great team building experience. It was a great learning experience together. I really enjoyed the time spent with everyone and hearing about everybody's sessions at lunch and everything. It was a great time. Little Bird told me that Martin had some ideas for presenting at OSBA next year, so perhaps we'll get to go and jeer or cheer next year for Martin if he decides to present something. So do you want to talk again now, or do you?
I'll save my comments till December.
December, okay.
And Wayne, you did mean December, not November, the special session being your last.
I did mean December.
Okay, we just need to know when to be prepared for it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we will see everybody next on our November 28th special session. I think that a lot of folks are going to be attending by phone, but there is going to be an in-person setup as well, so we'll give those details. Thank you everyone who took the time to attend our meeting tonight, and Mr. Everton for sharing your feedback. Hopefully the new draft is something that is good. We'll see. All right, thank you everyone. I will adjourn our meeting.